So we will keep it not only on the African continent, but in the Horn of Africa, Nile Basin area. A lot going on with Ethiopia, Somalia, the region of Somaliland that has a lot of implications for the Horn more broadly, Djibouti, Eritrea, other countries. Nonetheless, to get into at least some of that, we are very, very honored to be joined here on the show by Elias Amare, who's an Eritrean American journalist, geopolitical analyst, and a founding member of the Peacebuilding Center for the Horn of Africa based in Asmara. Elias, as always, thanks so much for being with us.
Well, Rania and Eugene, as always, I'm happy to join you on Freedom Side. Belated Happy New Year. I wish it was under better circumstances, but the struggle goes on, I guess.
Indeed, indeed. Well, Happy New Year to you as well, sir. And I guess let me start here. People probably in the U.S. have maybe seen a few headlines. There's a lot of tension between Ethiopia and Somalia now because of a deal signed between the government of Ethiopia and the regional government of Somaliland to access a port. So I think for the average person who doesn't know much about the area, they might assume, why is this so controversial? They're signing a deal in a port. So maybe let's just start there. Why has this sort of kicked over a hornet's nest?
Well, I'll try to be as brief as possible, explaining a very complex situation. I'm glad you brought Brother Musab from Sudan because I'm going to making some linkages. There are essential linkages, even linkages further on with the genocidal war that's going on in Gaza and the Ansarullah, fight in the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden. Briefly, the Somaliland breakaway region is a result of the Cold War legacy. As the Cold War ended, Somalia also descended into disintegration. Why Somalia was kept for over 3 decades in a state of disintegration has largely to do with the unipolar hegemony, the era of unipolar hegemony after the end of the Cold War, the U.S. imperialism entering where there is no force now to counter us. We can do whatever we want. So recall, if you will, for example, what the former commander, NATO commander Wesley Clark revealed at one time in 2001, 2003, Pentagon paper in which they had a plan to plunge the entire region, Middle East, North Africa, Horn of Africa, into chaos. 7 countries were targeted, beginning with Iraq, then Syria, then Lebanon, then Libya, then Sudan, then Somalia, and finally to Iran. The 7 countries. That's exactly what unfolded. If you look at it, why did he make that revelation? I don't know. Sometimes they're arrogant. They have this in-your-face attitude. This is what we're planning for you, and we're going to do it. Type of hubris of polar hegemony, if you will, the craziness. But in the Middle East and in our region, Horn of Africa, that's what happens. Sudan has disintegrated into chaos as it was targeted. Somalia, the same fate. The only country remaining is Iran. But to come back to the point, because I have to, in the brief moment that I'm given, I have to cover a lot of ground. To come back to the point, Somaliland was a breakaway. Meantime, in the rest of Somalia, the struggle was going on to reconstitute and to emerge from the ashes of state collapse. Meantime, the client regime of TPLF in Ethiopia, U.S. client regime, was continuously prodded by its patron, the U.S., to unleash chaos in that part of the world, to divide Somalia along clan lines, to constantly, prevent the state from re-emerging from chaos. So the Somaliland breakaway regime in the north remained in a state of limbo for 30 years. It never got recognition, international recognition, except maybe Taiwan, but Taiwan itself is in a state of limbo, non-recognition. Meanwhile, Somalia was beginning to re-emerge from the chaos. A central government in Mogadishu, some sort of semblance of army, navy. in Ethiopia, too, the TPLF regime was ousted. So this reformist government led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali came to power. There were a lot of hopes in the beginning for a new beginning, but those hopes are dashed now. I have to be brutally honest, call a spade a spade. Ethiopia is in a state of chaos also, disintegrating towards state collapse. So this desperate prime minister there, Abiy Ahmed Ali, is maneuvering to hoodwink the people and to divert their attention away from the urgent task in Ethiopia, the economic collapse, the ongoing wars in the Amhara region, genocidal wars, some would charge. So to divert that, he's bringing this port issue, the sea access issue, which never is really an issue. And so a memorandum of understanding was signed with the breakaway region of Somaliland, which has no authority, no legality, sovereignty to give away coastal, access for naval base or what have you, according to the memorandum of understanding. And this has created an uproar. It infringes on Somalia's sovereignty because the world, as far as the rest of the world is concerned, the international community, the United Nations, African Union, only recognizes the central government in Mogadishu, the capital, as having the authority and sovereignty over the entire Somalia. So this was a breach, a reckless breach that provokes Somalia. It is an act of aggression, and they have condemned it. Now, you have to bear in mind that this is only a memorandum of understanding, which is different from an agreement. A memorandum of understanding does not have legally binding weight behind it. Of course, it's much better than gentleman's agreement. For example, as the Soviet Union collapsed, it had Gorbachev insisted to James Baker and the German Chancellor that the word they gave him that NATO would not expand an inch forward. Had he insisted on having that in writing, even a memorandum of understanding, that would have been much better. But it was only verbal, although memos of that meeting were kept. I'm diverting, of course. But what I'm saying is a memorandum of understanding does not have much weight as an agreement or a treaty between two countries. And these are not two countries. One is, of course, Ethiopia is the seat of African Union, a recognized country, an old nation, although it is disintegrating into chaos. The other is a breakaway region that wants recognition but doesn't have it. It has been trying that for 30 years and hasn't achieved it. It was not capable to hold a referendum. It's not capable even to control what is called Somaliland now, because in a large part of Somaliland called Las Anod last year, there was a brutal civil war, and that part broke away from Hargeisa. So this is the situation and the background, briefly, that is happening there. The major driving force for the two desperados, Abiy Ahmed Ali in Addis Ababa and Musa Bihi in Hargeisa, is that both are in desperate situation. They want to salvage some kind of credibility or legitimacy within their population. And so they've brought this issue for Musa Bihi. He thinks he's getting international recognition from a prestigious state, the center of African Union, Ethiopia, which is highly questionable. As I said, the memorandum of understanding is, we have not seen the full content of that memorandum of understanding. So, and for Abiy Ahmed Ali in Ethiopia, he's seeking to divert attention from the desperate, dire situation that Ethiopia is in. It's near economic collapse, wars in all regions of the country, in particular, this dangerous ideology called Oromuma, expansionist, ethno-fascist ideology, which is that of the ruling group, the Oromo Prosperity Party, that controls power. So I hope I have given you some introduction into this complex situation that is emerging. But it is dangerous, and the Somalia central government has condemned it through its cabinet of ministers. It has issued a statement. The Arab League has sided with Somalia and condemned this infringement on Somalia's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Egypt and others. The African Union has issued a somewhat tepid statement calling for calm and the two sides to discuss the situation. The regional organization IGAD has also issued another tepid statement. I call that dereliction of duty on the part of these two organizations, because a dangerous situation is emerging, and unless forceful, opposition comes forth from all parts of the Horn of Africa, this will be not good for that troubled region. As your previous guest has indicated, Sudan is in the situation it is now. To add to that, Ethiopia, and if the regional war happens in the Horn of Africa as a result of this reckless adventurism, that will have dire consequences for the region.
I mean, it just sounds, God, there's just so much destabilization and so much potential for regional conflicts all across the African continent, the Middle East. It's quite a scary moment, but there's also so many historic shifts geopolitically. And I'm just curious, in the sort of emerging world order that we're seeing play out, what are the forces that could help de-escalate this particular situation?
Well, yes, progressive forces, of course, must, first of all, understand the complex situation, follow it closely, and make the appropriate analysis, and make the linkages also. Across the sea, in the Gulf of Aden, the Ansarullah resistance movement, which is a quasi-government that controls a huge part of Yemen now, has, by way of show of solidarity, stopped all ships that have any linkages with the Zionist state of Israel, which is conducting the genocidal war on the people of Gaza up north, the northern part of the Red Sea. You can argue what you will, but that has created an insecurity in the Red Sea. The Bab el-Mandeb, which is the choke point, the very important choke point, an entrance from the Gulf of Aden into the Red Sea. So all shipping has stopped. That's going to increase the price of commodities for Europe, and it will have dire ramifications in terms of increase of price of oil, increase in insecurity in the Red Sea, the price of insurance for ships have gone, so they are taking the longer route through the Cape of Good Hope, South Africa, to Europe. Add to that now this reckless adventurism that is emerging in Ethiopia and Somaliland. That does not help matters. So you can add to that, as the guest was talking about Ukraine also, that war is still not concluded. So we need to make these linkages, we need to pay attention, and we need to, where things need to be condemned forcefully, we must rise up to the occasion, call a spade, and forcefully condemn such reckless adventurism. To my surprise, the European Union has reaffirmed Somalia's sovereignty, its support for Somalia's sovereignty. So has the USA Department. I was surprised with their statement yesterday that they have come. The spokesman of the State Department, Matthew Miller, I think is his name, said that we recognize Somalia's sovereignty as per 1960 borders, which is the Somaliland breakaway dream of secession is not going to happen. The best way forward is that this situation has to be resolved. Somalia has to reconstitute itself, stabilize itself, because we cannot afford another instability in the Horn of Africa, which can engulf the entire region into a wider regional war. already the prospects of a wider regional war in the Middle East are haunting us. The genocidal war in Gaza is continuing. This reckless Zionist regime is continuing the war. Bombardment in Lebanon. The Houthi Ansarullah movement in Yemen. You see what I mean, Rania? The danger is there. And this conflagration may even lead into a nuclear holocaust. So we really need to see the urgency of the emerging situation, and as we have to stop conflagrations from happening all over. So we need to condemn this latest move by the irresponsible leaders in Ethiopia and in Somaliland, and reverse the situation, reverse course. Ethiopia has to backtrack from this. Somaliland does not have any sovereignty, or the authority supposedly representing Somaliland in Hargeisa, Musa Bihi, does not have any authority to grant such kind of lease, whether it is through a memorandum of understanding or an agreement. As I said, this is still a memorandum of understanding. The full content of it, we have not seen yet. Some are saying now that the Ethiopian leader may have deceived the Somaliland leader into thinking that he's going to get international recognition. We have not seen the full content of this memorandum of understanding, but even the false hope of recognition for Somaliland doesn't bode well for stability in the region.
No, very important points, and also notable that Somaliland has been shopping itself in terms of recognition to the U.S. and the U.K. for the past year as the best friend of the West, if they were to recognize them. So a lot of different pieces and layers to this. We'll have to leave it there right now, but I will note or ask you, Elias, tell folks where they can find you on YouTube, because you actually have two very long, in-depth discussions with Dr. Mohammed Hassan on many of these issues I think are quite illuminating.
Thank you, Eugene. Yes, I have a YouTube channel that is slowly growing, Elias Amare, or at Elias Amare. I have a presence also on Twitter at Elias Amare, and thank you for the support. The last interview we did, I have uploaded it, and people seem to like it. Thank you for granting me gracious permission to upload it on my channel. This is kind of solidarity collaboration that is growing on between us, and I appreciate that very much, Rania and Eugene, and I wish you all the best.
No, we appreciate you. Thank you so much, as always, Elias.
Thank you.